Thank you very much for the invitation. As Rizwan mentioned, I live in Silicon Valley. Have been there for the last about 33 years, and I have seen it grow from basically nothing to a huge, high-tech valley with dominating almost every aspect of life in the United States and elsewhere. A lot of the inventions have come out of the valley that have changed, transformed how we live today, how we play, how we work. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about how Pakistanis in Silicon Valley have contributed to this revolution. So I'm going to first start with talking about about where the Pakistanis in Silicon Valley fit in the worldwide diaspora. The worldwide diaspora of Pakistanis is the 7th largest. It's anywhere from figures vary from 5 million to 6 million Pakistanis living outside of Pakistan today. Out of these, 400 to 500,000 Pakistanis are in the United States. This is the actual figure from the U.S. Census in 2010 is 409,000. And Pakistani-American community is the 2nd fastest growing Asian community in the United States. It increased from about 200,000 people in year 2000 to about 409,000 Pakistani-Americans in 2010. California, again, I'm referring to the census figures here from 2010, has about 45,000 to 55,000 Pakistanis, the entire state of California. And about a quarter of these people in California live in Silicon Valley. So the figure is anywhere from 12,000 to 15,000 Pakistanis there. So, as I said, Pakistani-Americans are the 2nd fastest growing community. The median household income of Pakistani-Americans is $63,000, which is higher than the national average of $53,000. The national median income, not average, but median income. 55% of the Pakistani-Americans hold at least a bachelor's degree, which is higher, about twice the rate of 28%, which is the national average in the United States. 28% of Americans have a bachelor's or higher degree, and 55% of Pakistani Americans do. The most common occupations of Pakistanis, again from the census, is doctors, engineers, accountants, salespeople, administrators, managers, and financial analysts. There are, as I said, thousands of Pakistanis living in the valley, in Silicon Valley. And they work at some of the top high-tech companies like Apple, Google, Cisco, Intel, Oracle, and on and on. And a lot of them work for startups. Many of them have actually started their own companies. And now there is a growing ecosystem of Pakistani-American entrepreneurs, advisors, mentors, venture capitalists, investment bankers, accountants, and lawyers in Silicon Valley. These are the kinds of people you need to be able to start businesses and to be able to grow them. Fortunately, there's enough of us here, there in the valley that we can now do these kinds of things. In fact, there is an event planned next Saturday, a week from today. There's an organization of Pakistani entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, which is holding its annual event. They have an annual conference once a year. It happens around this time of the year. So there'll be hundreds of people there. Last time I went there were like 600 people. And there are dozens of Pakistani Americans who founded startups. They're funded by top venture capital firms there. Many Pakistani American startups have been acquired or gone public. The most recent one that went public is a company called FireEye. It was started by a fellow, Ashar Aziz, and with the way his stock has gone since the IPO, he is now the first Pakistani-American tech billionaire. He's personally worth $1 billion as a result of the stock run-up. And a number of these companies are riding the wave. You know, we have actually made a change from the Wintel world, which was a PC, which was the center of everything for a while, to what is now called cloud computing. And these Pakistani entrepreneurs are riding the wave of what is called cloud computing. And FireEye, which was started by Ashar, is actually riding that wave as well. Their claim to fame is cloud security, because as people move into the cloud, and cloud meaning that you have these little devices, and you don't have a lot of applications or data. You just have the front end. The actual applications and data live somewhere out there on the server in the cloud. So that is the wave that's currently happening. But then it raises a lot of security concerns, because your applications and your data are not local. They're located somewhere in the cloud, so you need to worry about what's going to happen to that. Pakistanis are, this is from, the media, the tech media there, considered a model minority. This is a term I've heard used several times in the press there. And as I said earlier, the Open is called Organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs, is holding their annual event next week. These are some of the media quotes, the press, how press is covering Pakistanis. This is a story from, this is an excerpt from Forbes. There's a story just recently, on April 14th. It says, put flags in a world map and you will see Sequoia Capital. Sequoia Capital is one of the top venture firms. It's known for having invested in companies like Cisco and Google, where they made a lot of money. You will see, connecting entrepreneurs born in Ukraine, Ireland, Finland, Greece, India, Pakistan, Venezuela, and a dozen other countries. Then there was another story I saw where there was somebody complaining that the tech writers, typecast Chinese, Indians, Pakistanis, and Silicon Valley as model minorities. Now, let me talk about what a machine revolution is. I'm sure you're all familiar. You've read in the history books, and some of us have felt the impact of it. Is the Industrial Revolution, which occurred in the 18th century. And as you know, the inventions of things like the steam engine, the steamships, the printing press, these kinds of innovations in Europe began the Industrial Revolution, and it had far-reaching consequences for everybody. It has economic, political, military, all sorts of effects, and it's fundamentally changed the power. There was a huge power shift from east to west as a result of this Industrial Revolution of the 18th century. One of the things, the unfortunate results of that was that people like us in India and Pakistan are colonized. And there was this relationship of the colonial power and the colonized, which actually set us back. And part of the problem is because we missed the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution started in the West, and by the time we figured out what it is, it was too late. We were already colonies. Now, I think the second Industrial Revolution is unfolding right now as we speak. This is happening. Sometimes it's hard to realize when you're in the middle of a revolution that it's really a revolution, and what kind of changes it's gonna bring to the world. So this revolution this time, rather than the steam engine and the steamships, that kind of stuff, the heavy, big stuff, this is driven by the small stuff. Things like the semiconductors, computers, smartphones, communication software, artificial intelligence. These are the kinds of things that are now changing the world. And Pakistanis in Silicon Valley are actually making a very strong impact on it. They're part of this revolution. They're making it happen. They're at the forefront of this revolution. So this is the chart that I wanted to show you. This is from a British economist, Angus Madison. He put this together. It's interesting how it shows, you know, the world changed. Let me see, how does this thing work here? So look at what happened, you know. Back in the early days, you know, the biggest power, the biggest economies in the world were India and China. We're talking about the first century here. And then look at what happened in the 18th, 19th centuries, how the power shifted. They became very small, and then the West started to rise. This is the GDP, how much of the world GDP was contributed by different countries. And look at what happened. Look at what happened here. I mean, look at India, what happened to India. Look at what happened to China. Now they're starting to, you know, to grow again. But obviously, you know, you see how the impact of the first industrial revolution was on the world. So this is what's driving the current industrial revolution. It's called Moore's Law. And this is, Gordon Moore is the founder of Intel Corporation, where I spent 15 years of my life working on microprocessors. And this chart here shows how the transistor density, how the number of transistors on a chip has been growing. Moore predicted back in the 60s that the number of transistors on a chip will double every 2 years. So that's where the word exponential comes in. There was an exponential increase in the chip density, and that directly translates, that chip density translates into how many functions you can put on a chip, how much stuff it can do, and how much intelligence you can put on that chip. So this has been the driver, and many Pakistanis have participated. I have personally, you know, worked on the microprocessors. I worked on the 8086, the 386, the 486. I was the chief designer of the 386 microprocessor. So again, you know, what Pakistanis have done here, I've got a little quick chart here. So I worked on these microprocessors, as I mentioned earlier. Chipsets, which is the chips that go around the PC. A number of Pakistanis, Sikandar Naqvi, Idris Kothari, Saeed Kazmi, these people actually put together chipsets. They actually started companies which developed and sold these chipsets that went into IBM compatible PCs. And then there was a fellow by the name of Safi Qureshi. I don't know how many of you have heard about him. He started AST. Naveed Sharwani is another guy. He's actually, some of these guys are from my school, my college, NED, so I know them pretty well personally. This is called SoC, system on a chip, the whole system. You can put the whole thing. In fact, just yesterday I was reading an ad where they put the entire PC on a little stick like the USB drive. What you can do is you connect that stick to any flat screen TV, and it turns into a computer. Then in the internet era came after the PC revolution. It was, you know, things like Ethernet drove that. Ethernet, actually, one of the architects of Ethernet was a fellow by the name of Sikandar Naqvi. He worked for Intel with me at the time. Cisco router switches, there's a bunch of Pakistanis, Khalid Raza, Uwais Naimat, Raghib Hassan, I can't name all of them. There's lots of people who worked for Cisco who actually developed these things and worked on that. More recently, 4G LTE Core. It was a company called Y-Core that was started by Rehan Jalil. He's also an Indian. Artificial intelligence is another area, robotics, which is driving robotics basically. And there's a company called Canesta that was started by Nazim Karimi. That's a 3D vision company. So I'll talk a little bit more about this, because this is very interesting stuff. Cloud computing, I just mentioned. Ashar Aziz started that company. Another company, Victella, there's a couple of people, Amir Khan and Khalid Raza. They just recently got like $30 million in funding from some of the top VCs. In big data, you know, we had a bunch of people working at Oracle. Suhaib Abbasi was one of the first employees of Oracle. There's a fellow by the name of Hassan Rizvi who's there now. And then, you know, Obama came in. We have Riaz here. Riaz Ghani. He actually had a big role in the Obama campaign, where he was able to use all that data and the social media for helping the campaign recruit people. Is that right, Riaz? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Another time.
All right.
How about the Google guy, our Google guy? What was his name? The guy who's very involved in Google? I forgot his name. He's very involved with Google.
There's a lot of people in Google that are heavily
he's very involved.
My own daughter works for Google.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
Okay, so this is the picture back in the old days when I did the 386. This was the design team that we had that worked on the 386 processor.
Can you go back to that slide?
Yeah.
Take a picture.
Like, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about Canesta. This is a very interesting company. It started, almost a decade ago. They developed this 3D vision chip. Canesta was later acquired by Microsoft, and they're using it in their Xbox. So in Xbox, you've probably seen Kinect. Where you can play a game by just hand
Xbox.
gestures, body
Right,
motion.
Xbox.
You can dance in front of it. This, for example, is an example of a player playing bowling ball here. So it actually senses your motions, the chip does, and it translates it on the computer.
Multiple players.
Yeah,
Multiple players.
exactly. So this is one example. Another one is this Google, self-driving car. What Google does is they have this thing sitting on top of it that you can see. This thing here. It does what is called the localization and mapping of the entire space around the vehicle, and it builds, it continuously builds that map as it's moving to know where everything is, and that's what drives the car basically. It allows the car to be able to do acceleration, to be able to do braking, to be able to steer, and turns, etc. because of that little thing, and that uses not a Canesta, but something like a Canesta chip.
Is this part of DARPA or this is not part of DARPA?
No, this was,
Separate
I
project?
think the original project for 3D was done at MIT.
MIT.
So it came out of DARPA, the DARPA Grand Challenge. The Stanford team that won it went to Google X,
Oh.
who was German, Sebastian, and then they're the ones who built the Google part.
Yeah, but the 3D chip itself came out of MIT.
MIT.
This guy Nazim himself actually is an MIT grad. He has a bachelor's degree from MIT and a master's from Stanford.
MashaAllah.
So what's going to happen as a result of the second machine revolution? Obviously, it's going to mean a huge impact, just like the first industrial revolution had a huge impact on life. So you're going to see much higher productivity. And last time, a lot of the service, the manufacturing jobs were eliminated. This time, I think it's going to be the service jobs. So, because these service jobs can use these robots. A lot of these things that are done by people can be done by these machines. If you look at a modern factory today, there are very few people in those factories. It used to be very easy to say if you make $1 billion investment, it creates so many jobs. Not anymore. Now, actually, if you put $1 billion factory and there's like 5 people working there producing all the stuff, it's because all the robots are doing the work. So that is going to have a huge economic impact on how we live, on people's incomes, etc. And then there's a lot of other things that are happening. One of the things I'm going to spend a little more time is the sharing economy, where instead of being a few producers that produce lots of stuff and then lots of consumers, you're going to see more producers and more consumers. So one example of it is, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So another thing that's going to happen is greater inequality. It's going to drive, because a few people who have the skills are going to make a lot more money than the rest of the people who probably won't even have jobs. So these are the kinds of concerns that you're going to see happening. And another thing that I expect is, I think the West's dominance that we have is probably going to last at least another century, if not longer, because the West is so far ahead of the East. in this revolution also.
Is it because of the research that's done in the West?
Exactly. You know, there was an article, interesting one I saw, that basically said, Chinese make a lot of stuff, but Americans create it. So examples are like iPhone. They build the iPhone, but the guys who created all the technology are Americans. It's the same with iPad. So there's a lot of Android phone. All of these examples show that the innovation, the creation still happens in the United States. The making of the stuff is given over to somebody else.
China and India.
Manufacturing, no, India is not even close. China is the factory of the world today. So one of the things that I expect to see as a result of it is you're going to see a more of a peer-to-peer type economy. You know, this company like Airbnb that are taking off. Have you heard about Airbnb?
Yeah.
Airbnb is a company where, you know, if you have an extra room in your house and you want to be able to
Rent it out.
to rent it out as like a hotel room, you can just list it with them. So there are people traveling, let's say, to San Francisco area. Instead of having to go to a hotel, they can look around what else is available. Probably a better, a nicer place for a lower price. And they might choose to go there instead. So as a result of it, what happens is, you know, let's say it used to be, you know, people used to talk about this particular city has only 100,000 rooms. And if you're having a conference that is going to have 150,000, this city cannot hold that conference. That's no longer true. Now all these rooms, all of a sudden, millions of these extra rooms have become available as hotel rooms that didn't exist before. Then there is the Get Around. This is a company. What it was doing is they basically let you. You know, you've got your car. You're not using it most of the time. It's just sitting there. Especially people who live in cities. They have cars, but they don't use them. They usually take public transport. Once in a while, they need them to go get groceries or something. So people can list their cars with Get Around, and then anybody can rent them by the hour when they need it. So everybody doesn't need to own it now. It means extra income for the person who owns the car, because they're paying for insurance and everything, and their car is depreciating over time. And other people can use it. They don't have to pay all the other costs. They only pay for what they need. There's a sharing kind of economy. Then there's Etsy, Lyft. You've heard about these companies, right? They're taxi companies. Anybody can offer themselves as a taxi.
Pink mustache?
Yeah, exactly. That's Lyft. There's another one called Uber.
Uber.
And then there's one called TaskRabbit. You know, an example is my daughter, you know, went home late in the evening and she didn't want to go out and get something. She wanted to just, you know, actually she wanted to make desi food. She wanted to order shan masala, but she didn't want to go and get it. So she went to TaskRabbit, punched it in. This is the masala I need. So somebody was there, you know, on TaskRabbit, and somebody was there within 15 minutes at her door, you know, with the shan masala. So this is the kind of stuff that they're doing right now with the sharing economy. So what's going to happen to people, you know, when there's not enough jobs? One of the things that's going to happen is they're going to be sharing economy. They can make some income as a result of that. But the other thing that is possible is hopefully we can have shorter work weeks as a result of it. Instead of, you know, people working, you know, some people working like 60 hours a week or 70 hours a week and others having no jobs. If you reduce the work week, you can have more jobs as a result of it. The French are already, you know, doing that, a 35-hour work week, and hopefully, you know, we're going to see it someday here in the United States as well. Then there is the idea of basic income guaranteed for all. That the government gives everybody a certain amount of money to maintain a minimum standard of living from the taxes. And, you know, if they want to make more money, if they want a higher standard of living, if they want to do something else, they can go work and make that extra money. So this is one of the ideas. Actually, it was a serious proposal during Nixon's time when he floated the idea of the family assistance plan, but it died out. It didn't actually happen. And the funny thing is, Republicans have actually come up with some of these interesting ideas, not Democrats. So one of the other things that Rizwan has often talked about is brand Pakistan. You know what branding means, right? When you have When you think about a company like Volvo, you think safety. It's a safe car. When you think about toys, you often think about Toys R Us. When you think about books, you think about Amazon.com. So they have these associations that are established that automatically create a brand for you that you go. Unfortunately, when you say Pakistan, people think bin Laden. People think terrorists. People think the Taliban. So we have a very big problem here. We have a branding problem that obviously we need to fix. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get all the business, the trade, the investment that we're looking for. So it's a tough problem. Unless we actually fix the problem, it's not going to go away. But in the meantime, what we can do is try and balance the coverage to the extent possible. That create other associations, not just bin Laden, but let's say we try and create an association of this Karachi slum girl who went to Harvard Business School. And this was just the last year's story. She's her father is a driver, works for a company as a driver. Her mother is a maid, and she was able to attend a school called TCF, the Citizens Foundation School in Karachi, in a small slum. And then she attended an IBA and an MBA course in Karachi, and she was able to get into Harvard Business School.
Do you know her name?
Yeah, I think her name is Fatima. See, all these, you're going to get a copy of this hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Each of these is a link, is a hyperlink. So if you click on this, actually I write about these things. One of the things I do as a part of what I see my role in this country is try and promote a positive image of Pakistan. So all of these stories that I've covered, I've written about extensively, and I've published them wherever I can. And some sites pick them up. There's a couple of people, and there's two guys in Washington D.C. who somehow like my web, my blog. They come in and pick it up. There's a guy by the name of Seth Kaplan, who runs this globaldashboard.com site. He often refers to my stories, and there's a couple of other guys who do that.
Excuse me. Just like this is a nice segue to point out that people can also sign up for your blog essays, right? On RiazHaq.com.
It's on the site. It's on the site.
Yeah. I have it here.
Right.
This is my blog.
I would encourage everyone.
And this is my Twitter handle.
Do you have any examples of how Silicon Valley entrepreneurs have leveraged some of the things you mentioned, these trends in Pakistan, outsourcing or
Yeah, I think I have something on that. So then there is another one. There's a 12-year-old Pakistani girl who was at Davos last year, the economic forum in Switzerland, and she was featured there. They actually did a video. Tom Friedman of New York Times actually interviewed her. She has been taking these massively offered online courses, and she's taking pretty advanced courses. She's only 12 years old, and she's taking classes in astrophysics. So this was pretty interesting stuff. So again, if you click on it when you get home and you get the presentation, you click on it, you can actually see the story and you can see the video. Okay. Urban middle class growth in Pakistan has been tremendous over the last decade. This is a story that is a very well kept secret. It never gets out there. Nobody talks about it. But according to an Asian Development Bank report, and you'll see when you click on it, that the percentage of Pakistanis moving up into the middle class is significantly larger than any of our neighbors, including India, over the last decade. And now Pakistan has a larger middle class than India, which has obviously been the big story lately.
In percentage terms of its population?
Yeah, it's in percentage terms. Okay. Then there is the story of the online outsourcing. Obviously, companies are not going there to establish their offices, but today, there's a number of sites where they do online outsourcing. Elance is one of those sites. Then there is freelance.com. There's a Odesk. There's a whole bunch of them. So I saw a report on that recently where they said there are 3 countries at the top of the list which have been getting most of the business from these online sites. Number 1 is the United States. Obviously, it makes sense because people like to do business share with other skilled people. Number 2 is India, and number 3 is Pakistan on that list. So you got to take a look at that as well. Then we have had rising disposable income and consumption. And you just heard from...
And within that, it's not just software, but a lot in media, a lot in transcribing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It goes...
Yeah, but it has categories.
Yeah,
a lot of it is software development, actually.
It is software, but I'm saying that's the one that's
graphics,
obvious.
software development, all
But
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
The other ones are pretty surprising also.
Also, Pakistan is on Goldman Sachs' BRIC plus N11 growth map. This guy O'Neill, who's been credited with this with inventing BRIC, he actually wrote a book. It came out last year, the growth map, and Pakistan is one of. There's about 15 countries on that, and Pakistan is one of those 15 countries where he says there's a great opportunity to invest for the future. Okay. So again, we need to fight stereotypes. One of the things, you know, this fellow T.V. Paul, he wrote a book called Pakistan, the Warrior State. He's been going around the country selling his book, and he's been really bad-mouthing Pakistan. And the data that he presents is absolutely wrong. I mean, there's huge, you know, problems with that data, and he's selling it. So I decided to write a review, and I went to the Amazon site, and I actually responded to a lot of the points that he makes with data rather than just opinions.
Please click like on that.
So in general, you know, we should avoid reinforcing the negative stereotypes. Obviously, the reality stares us in the face when there's a report that says 30 people got killed in a suicide bombing. We can't change that from sitting here. But what we can do is we can try and balance that with some positive stuff that's also going on in the country. So brand development is one of the ideas that I just discussed that we can help with here as Pakistanis in the United States. Remittances, you know, we just heard about that $15 billion is going to Pakistan. Trade, you know, having a large diaspora should be a great positive for a country. Because, you know, I just mentioned Shan Masala. Why would Americans import Shan Masala if it wasn't people like my daughter ordering it? You know, and once they see it, you know, her friends see it, they say, yeah, this is pretty good stuff. Where did you get it? So, you know, we can help promote some of our products by actually using those products and talking about them. At least the people on TaskRabbit know what Shan Masala is now, which is a good thing.
The rice is pretty good too.
So obviously our own demand can generate trade, meaning more imports from Pakistan, more exports from Pakistan to the United States and wherever else Pakistanis live. You can also promote Pakistan, just talk about it. You know, if there's something good, you know, if you got a nice shirt that says made in Pakistan, say, hey, yeah, see, I got it. You know, this is made in Pakistan. It's pretty good. Then FDI development in development centers. A number of Silicon Valley companies, you asked me the question about how can we help. A number of Silicon Valley's companies, they're small companies right now, they're startups, many of them, and they're, you know, they don't have a lot of employees. But many of them have set up development centers in Pakistan where they're hiring Pakistani engineers, training them, and in some cases bringing them over to the United States as well. So there is this going on as well.
Who is, can you name?
Yeah, just recently, you know, I was talking to Naveed Sherwani. He has a development center in Pakistan. He's hired hundreds of engineers. We're doing the system on a chip development there. Then there is this guy who sells Jadoo TV. I don't know if you've heard about it or not.
Shava and Jadoo.
Huh?
Both Shava and Jadoo.
Yeah. So this Jadoo guy, I know Jadoo guy. So he's actually developed a streaming box. You know, like Apple TV. You get the stuff off the internet, and then you can see it on your TV. So he says he has a couple of hundred engineers working in Pakistan on that stuff. And I think we have somebody here.
Yeah, I can maybe, you know, I can give some stats afterwards.
Oh, okay. So we have you know, he's been actually doing that. He has a development center there in Pakistan. I know Chorus has had a development center. They had one until Chorus was started by Rehan Jalil. It was sold to Tel Labs. And then Tel Labs, I think, still has a development center there in Karachi. And Chorus, you know, Rehan has started this new company called Elastica, which has also set up a development center in Karachi. So a number of them are doing it. And what can we do here? I think one of the things we can do is do some human capital development in Pakistan, offer ourselves, to do lectures in Pakistan when we go visit there, and see if there's any takers there. So that's one thing. We can also hire and train Pakistanis if we're, hiring people. So those are some of the things that we here can do. Okay, these are just appendices for your information. Thank you very much for your attention.